Now, Advanced Theme for Bricks Builder opens up a ton of options. It allows you to customize the interface in a multitude of different ways. Lots of time-saving features, enhancements, and some really useful things inside there that make it a real powerhouse when you want to up your game using Bricks Builder. Well, Maxime, the guy behind the actual plugin, has just released an alpha build of a CSS Grid Builder that allows you to visually lay out any CSS grid layout you pretty much want to. I'm going to show you a very early build of this and show you exactly how it all works. So let's jump over and take a quick look. Now, I've set up a really simple grid layout. You can see that we've got a container, and inside there we have 6 blocks, and inside each of those blocks we've got a heading 1 through 6. Doesn't really matter which ones you use, it's just there to visually show you what's going on. I've also got a couple of classes set up to alternate each of these rows. You can see I've got a grid background light for the first ones, and that's got the one light kind of layout. If we take a look at the next block, you can see we've got grid background dark. And other than that, nothing else has been set up on here. First things first, let's set this up to be using grid. So first of all, make sure we have our container selected, come out to the content on the left-hand side and change display to grid. You can see that now opens up all the grid options. You'll also notice that we have this new option called Grid Builder, and we'll come back to that in a moment. First thing I want to do is go and set a 30 pixel gap between each of the rows stroke columns to give us a little bit of breathing room around all these items. Okay, so now we have that set up, and pay no attention to the order that these are in. I've literally been playing around with things inside the editor just to kind of come to terms with how it all works. So now we set that up, you can see we could easily come in and start to manually input the values inside the grid template columns, rows, auto columns, and so on. But like I said, I'm more of a visual person, so let's invoke the Grid Builder. And now what we have is a representation of what we have on the front end. So we've got our 3 columns and 2 rows, our 30 pixel gap, and our child settings, and you can see there's our column start, row start, and so on. So now what we can do is we can delete any of these, so we can remove them, we can resize them, we can adjust what we want inside here. We can add extra rows in, extra columns. It's incredibly simple. So we add a row, you can see that puts a row in, it updates the value on the right hand side. If we remove that, it'll remove it, and you see it updates the values there. But obviously we can come in and change the values here as well. So we can set that to 3, we could change our row and column gap to 20 for example, and adjust that as well. And now we can easily just start to move things around and scale and lay out how we want to. So we may want to grab this block and drop it down underneath here. There we go, simple as that. Extend this one out to take up 2 columns or 2 rows. Let's do the same thing with this one. We'll set this to work over 2 rows as well. And we'll do the same here. We'll just grab this one, drop this down to the bottom, and grab this and just make this bigger as well. It's very simple to do. And all we need to do is click on Apply Grid. And there we go. That's our grid has now been set up. If we take a preview of this on the front end, let's just save it and preview this. You can see there's our grid layout all set up the way we've expected to. So now you take a look at the left-hand side, you can see all the values have been filled out for us. So our grid template, 1FR, 1FR, 1FR for the grid template rows and columns, everything's set up there for us. All really simple. Select our blocks, you can see our grid columns are set up, everything is laid out the way we want. So now what we could do if we wanted to, come over to one of our global classes, for example our background light, we'll select it, and we're going to come into our style, come into our layout, and we'll give this a minimum height. We'll say something like 400 pixels. And you see now the grid updates accordingly. And we could do the same then if we want to for one of our dark ones. So there's our background dark. Same thing again, set our minimum height or maximum height, whatever we want. And see now everything is set up the way we want it to. They're extending out as need be. You can see this grid item 5 is taking up 2 of the rows. So it extends out to double that kind of section. So in other words, 800 pixels with the gap in between, which is our 20. So 820 pixels. You get the idea. So it's very easy to do. And if we want to, we can go back, select our grid one more time, come back into our content, open up our grid builder, and we can adjust this completely. So we may say we actually want to take this one. We'll make that like so. We'll grab this one and move that up there. We'll grab this one, and what we'll do is we'll change the order of these. We'll drop that one down there. We'll position this one up here, and we'll stretch this one over. Same for this one, we'll just drag this one down as well. And now we've changed the layout completely. So we'll apply our grid one more time, and you can see now our grid changes accordingly. It's very easy, very visual to work with, and super simple. And all we can do is we can use the same principles to work with the various different breakpoints that we have. So we change this to tablet portrait. You can see this keeps the same layout, but we may want a different layout. So we can come into our grid builder and we can change our layout. So let's just change this over to a different layout. So now we have a completely different layout. We'll apply that grid. You see there's our separate grid, slightly different layout to the first one. If we switch back to our desktop, you can see there's our first layout. Switch over to our tablet and you see there's our second layout. It's really cool that you can actually do it this easily. We can have different CSS grids for different breakpoints. So we can change our design completely across all these options. And as you can see, as we change these, take a look at the values over on, for example, we'll select one of our blocks. You can see the values will change and update accordingly across everything. So it's very simple to start creating these visual CSS grids, having different layouts for different responsive breakpoints. I think this is awesome. And this is the alpha build. So I'm pretty sure that this is going to grow and expand. Now, speaking of growing and expanding, before we close this down, let's go back to our grid builder. And you can actually get these to overlap. I can't really see a reason why you'd want to, but it's an option there which you can use inside CSS Grid. So we can have this overlap both. And you can see that now overlaps and we've got the under block is sitting underneath it. Like I said, I can't really see why you'd want to, but if anybody knows why, drop a comment in the comment section down below. And that really is how simple it is to start working with this. I think this is a great way of being able to set things up to visually create really interesting layouts. If you want to kind of get into that bento grid layout with different layouts with different responsive modes, you'll be able to do it super easily by using Advanced Thema and the new CSS Grid. So kudos to Maxime for bringing this out so quickly. It was literally a day and a half ago. He was showing off some very early prototypes. And it's already an alpha build for testing right now. I think that's pretty awesome. If you want to find out any more information, there's all links in the description. If you've got any comments, questions, or feedback, drop those in the comment section down below. As always, my name is Paul C. This is WPTuts, and until next time, take care.